Hello everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. Asterisk for a long time. The small village on the northern slope of the mountain has been famous for an abandoned building, St. Mary's Church. Locals often call it the Cursed Church, because anyone who dares to enter never returns. Fear covers the whole village, and the church gradually becomes a symbol of spine-chilling ghost stories passed down from generation to generation. Jack, a young man who has just moved to the village, is curious and does not believe in ghosts. He grew up in the middle of the city, where the lights and noise make any supernatural story sound absurd. When he hears the villagers gossiping about St. Mary, he just smiles and considers it as chilling scares made up to scare children. But that arrogance accidentally pushes him into a dead-end journey. The first night, Jack moved into the small house on the edge of the village. The old neighbor came to say hello. His name was Henry. His face was haggard, his eyes filled with an indescribable anxiety. When he learned that Jack was going to walk near the church, he immediately stopped him, his voice trembling like someone who had just escaped from a nightmare. Henry said that 10 years ago, a group of curious young men had also entered St. Mary's to prove to the whole village that there was nothing to be afraid of. But then the group never returned. Their family searched everywhere, only to find a few personal items scattered next to the rotten wooden door, and they themselves were nowhere to be found. Jack just laughed after hearing that. To him, it was simply an old horror story. Despite Henry's urgent advice, he was determined to explore, to prove that it was all just baseless rumors. It was that competitive nature that opened a door leading him to unimaginable horror. The next day, when the sun had just set behind the mountains, Jack brought a flashlight and a small camera. He wanted to capture the image of the abandoned church, to mock those who still believed in ghost stories. The path leading to St. Mary was covered with weeds. On both sides were old, gnarled trees like giant hands reaching out. The moon rose, high, silver light seeping through the thick fog, making the scene even more creepy and gloomy. As he approached, Jack saw the entire church immersed in darkness. The mossy stone walls, the broken stained glass windows, the cracks running long like deep wounds on the old body. The wooden door in front of him was rotten. Every time the wind blew, it creaked like a cry. Jack turned on the flashlight. The weak light swept across the door, revealing strange carvings like ancient symbols. He shivered slightly but quickly brushed it away, telling himself that it was all just his imagination. Stepping through the threshold, a cold air immediately rushed. Out, the space inside was large but empty. The echoing footsteps were so clear that even he felt uneasy. The ceiling was high. The broken glass on the windows reflected moonlight onto the mottled tile floor, creating distorted shapes like lurking ghosts. Jack went deeper, shining his flashlight everywhere. Dust covered the place. The wooden chairs were rotten. The cross on the altar was broken in half. But strangely, he felt like someone was watching him. From the dark corner, a faint sound rang out, like a whisper. Jack stopped, his heart pounding. He turned the flashlight towards the sound, but saw only dense darkness. He told himself that it was just the wind coming through the cracks, tried to stay calm and continued walking. But then, when he passed the row of chairs, Jack suddenly stopped. On the dust-covered surface, there were clearly new handprints, as if someone had sat there a few minutes ago. A chill ran down his spine, but his competitive spirit kept him from giving up. He pulled out his camera and snapped a few pictures as evidence. Suddenly, from the back of the church, a wooden door swung open, making a groaning sound. Jack pointed his flashlight toward it, the light sweeping through the narrow hallway leading to the basement. A cold air rushed up, making him suffocate. For some reason, his legs urged him to go down, as if there was an invisible force pulling him. The further he went, the heavier the air became. The stone steps were damp and slippery. The musty smell rushed into Jack's nose, making him nauseous. The flashlight flickered, the light sometimes bright, sometimes dim, and then he heard footsteps right behind him. He turned around, but there was no one, just a deep, dark space. Jack gasped, quickly walking faster, his heart pounding. When he reached the bottom of the stairs, he stopped dead. In front of him was a large room, the walls covered with strange symbols, identical to the carvings on the church door. In the middle of the room, a large stone table, covered with a tattered black cloth. As Jack approached, he gently pulled the flap down, and at that moment, the whispering around him suddenly became as intense as dozens of voices whispering at the same time. Jack's face paled. He stepped back, but an invisible, cold hand suddenly touched his shoulder. He jumped. The flashlight fell to the ground, the light spinning chaotically. When he bent down to pick it up, he caught a glimpse of a blurry figure standing in the corner of the room, eyes glowing like hot coals. Before Jack could react, the entire room was engulfed in invisible screams. He screamed and ran back up the stairs. But with each step, the footsteps behind him kept following, getting closer and closer. When he reached the basement door, Jack turned around for the last time and saw that figure still standing there, motionless, but his eyes pierced right into his heart. Jack panicked and rushed out, but the wooden door slammed shut behind him as if someone had deliberately imprisoned him. He gasped for breath, cold sweat running down his back. At this moment, a single thought echoed in Jack's mind. This church was not empty. It contained secrets that humans should not touch. Jack's story had only just begun. What he witnessed in the basement was just a small piece of the gloomy picture that covered St. Mary's. And in the next episode, you will know what is really imprisoned in that darkness.